Hey folks, welcome back to the Beer Ranch Garage, and today we're going to make a video on how to test an automotive circuit in your diagnostic process, doing it from the perspective of a DIYer. So with this being said, I am the furthest person from being an expert on automotive electric, but I have just enough rudimentary information that might help another DIYer like myself who doesn't easily understand wiring diagrams and the concept of electricity and currents going through circuits. So I'll show you what I use and how I use to solve a problem I'm having with this car, and hopefully you will find it helpful, and if not helpful, at least interesting. So please stick around, take a look at this video, and come on in and I'll show you what I'm working on. So folks, this monstrosity is a 2005.5 Audi A4 with a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo and a 6-speed manual. It's actually a really nice car. Not my car, but I'm working on solving this problem with the ABS system. I ran the diagnostic software for the Audi VW stuff, and it came back with a ESP sensor that's malfunctioning. It's called the G419, basically a traction control sensor. It senses the movement of the car, it feeds it to the ABS system, and the ABS kind of takes that data and works. And if it's not getting good data from the ESP sensor, it's not going to work. The initial kind of motivation or the initial thought would be, let's replace the sensor and get going. Well, that's what's called the parts cannon. So I loaded up the parts cannon a couple different times, and as you can see, these are all the different part numbers of ABS sensor that go to this car, and none of these actually solve the problem that I was having, and I'll tell you why. So before I get into how I solve the problem, I'm going to have to talk about what I use to solve the problem. And again, this is from a DIYer perspective, not a professional, not a like an electrical engineer or anything. So this is kind of a good idea of what you should or need to have in your repertoire as a DIYer. So what you must have a legitimately capable, what they call a DMM, a digital multimeter. This one is a Ames brand from Harbor Freight. It's a DM1000. I've had it for probably, since ever they came out, like 5 or 6 years ago. And at the time, I probably bought it for like 50 or 60 bucks. Works perfect, does exactly everything I need to do for these instances. However, I will say one thing. If you're going to work on modern automotive, you will need a couple other things, accessories to go along with your DMM. One, you're going to need like the probe accessories. You're going to want like these little alligator clips that have these little bullnose connectors. And the reason you're going to want this is so you can use what are called like these needle back probes. And I'll show you why these come in super handy. Otherwise, you're going to be tearing up your wiring harness. This allows you to not destroy your harness as you're doing the work that you need to do. And so these accessory sets you can get relatively cheap on Amazon. I think these back probes were probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks, and then you get these wires for about the same, give or take a few bucks. But you must have these, even as a DIYer. These are essentials. You have to have these. If you're going to be testing circuits, the other thing you're going to need is some type of accurate wiring diagram. In this case, for this car, because I work on so many of these cars, and I'm going to stop working on them, but I have worked on so many of them. I have what is this called? The Bentley manual. It has phenomenal wiring diagrams. You can get wiring diagrams from like other service repositories. What is it? All Data. All Data is probably the most common one. You can get wiring diagrams from All Data. Like a year-long subscription is relatively cheap for each car. It's like 30 or 40 bucks. So if you have a car you're going to be working on, bite the bullet, spend the 30 bucks, get the All Data access, and you can get accurate wiring diagrams, which you will absolutely need. And so the last thing here for this job or for this task is not a necessity, but a really, really nice to have kind of tool. is what's called a power probe. I think this one is the Power Probe 3. Yeah, it is. I think, well, I know for sure they have a Power Probe 4. I may have an even newer one. So when these things first came out, they were really expensive, a few $100, but I think you can get the Power Probe 3s now for around $100 or so. And they have a lot of uses. Now, if you're very knowledgeable in electrical, you can use these for all kinds of wondrous things. But even if you're a novice, actually, these are very good because they provide a lot of easy to obtain information. You do have to be careful because what this allows you to do is send power into a circuit, and you know, you could do some damage that way if you don't know what you're doing. So stay away from the trigger unless you absolutely know what you're doing. But as far as taking a reading, that's perfect. It works perfectly well, and I don't know if there's any damage you can do just from taking a reading from a circuit. All right, folks. So let's go over our theory of victory, as the eggheads call it, a phrase which I hate because usually when it's used, it's talking about a losing effort. But so looking at the wiring diagram here, this is for the ABS control module and the components surrounding it. If you look at this rectangle here, this is the G419 sensor, the ESP sensor, the one in question with, again, the error code. And basically a wiring diagram is just like a map of the wiring. A couple of things to note is there is 4 wires that are going to be present at the sensor for this, at the connector for this G419 sensor. You have this wire right here, and you can tell that this is a ground. It says right here, ground connection is 238. And then the other thing that you can get from this is it gives you the color. In this case, there's a map of a legend for colors, and this says this wire is going to be BR, and BR is brown. So there can be a brown wire going into receptacle 2 at the connector that plugs into this G419 sensor. So terminal 2 is going to have a brown wire coming in. That's going to be your ground. Next thing to note is in terminal 5, you're going to have another wire that's coming in that's going to be a power wire. And I'm going to tell you how you can find out it's a power wire in a second. But you can see this says SW in brown. SW is black and BR is brown. So this is a black and brown wire going into terminal 5. And we think this is a power wire. Let me show you why I think it's a power wire. So with wiring diagrams, usually they'll continue, like this one says it continues on another page. And in this instance, you see this little rectangle here that says 4. That means this trace, which is 48, will continue on trace 4 of this ABS wiring diagram. So when we find trace 4 on this next page, here's trace 4, and you see this little rectangle, it says that's a continuation from 48. So 48 from the previous diagram is going to continue here. And again, we got our black and brown wire, and it gets to this 10 amp fuse. It gets power from this 10 amp fuse. So we know this is a power wire that comes in here, and a ground wire that comes in here to this connector. This is a brown wire, and this is a black and brown wire. All right, so those two things we're going to have to verify at the connector. And then the next two things that we have to, or the next couple of items that we have to keep track of are the 2 wires that come in on terminal 3 and terminal 4. These are called signal wires, or at least I call them signal wires, because they send a signal to this rectangle here called the, this is your ABS module. Audi calls it the J104 ABS control module. But this is how this sensor talks to the ABS brain with these 2 wires. One other thing to note here is before these wires get to the ABS module, there's a middleman, there's another connection. So they connect to a different harness, like they plug in to a separate harness. So one harness that goes from the ABS module to this plug, and then this harness that goes from this plug to the sensor. It gets a little bit confusing, but if you look at the details, you'll see here. And the reason I know this is a plug, because it says T17B and you'll see the /14. That means the 14th terminal in this 17-pin connector. And if you look over here on the paper, it'll say T17B is a 17-pin connector colored green in the connector station in the A-pillar of the car, and we'll find that in a minute. But you have T17B, terminal 14, terminal 1. So from the sensor connector, you have a green and brown wire that goes from this 17-pin connection to the sensor connector and terminates in terminal 4. On the other side, you have a white and brown wire that goes to terminal 3. However, this changes going to the ABS module. The color is lilac from this 17-pin connector to the ABS module, and for here the color is red. So from this connector to the ABS module, you have a lilac or purple wire that goes to terminal 24 of the ABS module. And then this one is a red wire that goes to terminal 37 of the ABS module. So your two signal wires. Now, to rule out any kind of wiring issue like a harness or a short or something like that, we have to test all 4 of these wires. And if these wires are good and that we can verify that the sensor is working, then that'll kind of lead us into the direction we need to go. Hope that all made sense. So let me now show you how we can test these wires. All right, folks, so now I'm going to bring you into the car and show you where this G419 sensor lives. This is in front of the shifter in the center console, and you have to kind of go forward, and you see this white rectangle there. That's the G419 sensor, and you might not see it from this angle on the camera, but the plug for the the plug for the G419 is right here. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this plug. I need both hands, so I got to move the camera. I'm going to remove this plug so I can test it, and then we're just going to test it the same way according to the wiring diagram. Okay, so let me remove the plug. Give me a minute. All right, so now we got our plug unplugged, and this is that plug with the 4 wires we were looking at on the wiring diagram. I don't know if you can make it out with the lighting here, but there are numbers on the connector here. So for example, this is terminal 2, 4, and 6, and on the other side you're going to have 1, 3, and 5. So 2, 4, and 6, and then you're going to have 1, 3, and 5 on the other side. All right, so first thing we're going to do is test for ground and power, and that way we can at least make sure that the circuit providing power to the sensor is good. And let me show you how we're going to do that. We're actually going to use a power probe. This is where the power probe really comes in handy. All right, so I'm going to take my power probe. And I'm going to hook it up to the car's battery, and it'll power up the probe. So the black clip to the negative terminal, red clip to the positive terminal, and I actually got myself the longer extendable extension wire so I can go around the car. I think it comes with a shorter wire, but either way. Anyway, you're getting battery power here, and it's got 12 volts. So when you press up, you're sending power, 12 volts of battery power through this. That's not what we want to do right now. We just want to verify that that plug is getting what it needs. All right. If you recall, terminal 2 is our ground, and when I put the probe to terminal 2, the green light lights up. that means I got good ground. Okay. Now, terminal 5, I think it was, is our power. And so I think this is 5 right here. Okay, we do need to put the key in the ignition to send battery power. So I'll turn the key on. Again, terminal 2. Terminal 2 is our ground. Terminal 5 is our power. And so you can see we're getting 11.9 volts. So we know this circuit is perfect as far as ground and power go too. All right. We know that we got good power and good ground. And now we need to test our signal wires. Our signal wires were 3 and 4. So you see where you got 4 is a green and brown wire, and 3 is a white and brown wire. Okay, so let's go ahead and check those real quick. All right, excuse the beeping. I can't get it to not beep because I need the key in there. Actually, I don't need the key in there for this test. Anyway, so terminal 4 is our green and brown wire, and if you recall on the wiring diagram, that I believe goes to terminal 37 on the ABS module. So remember I was telling you about these back probes? Because on the DMM it's hard to keep the probe into the pin unless you're holding it on there. These back probes let you slide it into the pin and it holds itself. You don't need to do anything. So with my probe into the connector, I'll just bring the alligator clip out. And connect it to the probe on the DMM. Just going to set that down so it doesn't interfere with anything. Just like that. Kind of let it hang. And over here, I'm going to come to my ABS module. Right here. This is my little ABS brain. I need to undo the connector so I can get to the terminals that I'm looking for. Okay, pull this connector out. All right. Now, I don't believe you'll be able to see it. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer. Kind of hard. So you might not be able to see it, but then again, you might. I don't know. There's numbers on this connector. And for example, this one right there says 1 and 25 right here. Don't know if the camera's picking that up, but 1 and 25. So right now we are probed in the car on the connector for the ESP sensor. We're probed to terminal 3. So terminal 3 goes to terminal 24 here. So I just kind of reproduce my little back probe setup that I have, and I find terminal 24. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Let's see if I got that count right. Oh, I got to turn on the DMM. All right, let's give that a try. So I have it set to resistance, and it's got an audible warning. So what we're doing here is called a continuity check. This is going to allow us to make sure that that circuit at the ESP sensor is has integrity with the circuit here at the module. So 24 is this one, I believe. Nope. Yep, this one. All right, so that is terminal 24, pin 24 on the module. And then inside the car, we have terminal 3 on the sensor connector. And you can see that it's got 3 ohms of resistance, but it's a good connection. It's a solid connection, and you can hear the audible sound. Now, if I take the probe out, it breaks continuity. So we know that that terminal 3 to terminal 24 connection, the wire is good from here all the way to the sensor. So we don't have any kind of issue on that circuit. But we got the second signal wire to check, right? So let's go back inside. So this is terminal 4 now. You take the probe, you're gonna stick it into terminal 4. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna find terminal 37, which I believe is this guy right here. And sure enough, it looks like, oh, sure enough, there's continuity there too. For 4 ohms of resistance, that is a good connection. So we're perfectly assured that our circuit is good. Now remember when I told you there is a 17-pin connection? This wiring harness that runs from the ABS module to the inside of the car comes in through here, and goes to this 17 pin connector. So this green 17 pin connector. And this is, I believe, pin 14 was a red wire. And I don't know if you can see, but pin 1 is, this wire is a lilac, okay? So the one thing also we can do to make sure, we're going to make sure that the harness, well, we know the circuit is perfectly fine because we checked it at the sensor and at the module, but if you didn't have continuity, the next thing you would do is to see where the break was in which part of the harness. So I'm really going to quickly show you how I would check continuity from the module in the engine bay to this connection here. We'll take the red wire, which I believe was terminal 37 to terminal 14 here. So I'll stick that back probe that you just saw. I'm going to stick it in terminal 37 of the ABS module connector, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to probe this red wire, and I'm going to show you why that back probe is so important and such a good tool to have. All right, so I have my probe in the engine bay on the ABS module, pin 37, and this is pin 14 on that 17 pin connector, the red wire. See that? And I got continuity. That means the harness is good from the ABS module to this connector, and we already know it's going to be good from this connector to the sensor because we did the end-to-end test a minute ago. But instead of taking out this connector to pull the get to the pin on the other side, I can just back probe it. It doesn't damage the wire right here. If you can see it going in here, it doesn't damage the wire at all. It's not intrusive. So that's great to have. All right, so that's the basics of testing the circuit. We've ruled out that there's any wiring issues in the circuit. All right, so folks, if we've ruled out the wiring is an issue, we know that the wiring is good. And like I said before, we threw the parts cannon at it, and we know the sensor wasn't the issue. If you look at the circuit, if we know the sensor is not the issue, if we know all the wires are good, then that leaves one culprit, right? Now, mind you, I checked all the fuses, and just as a precaution, I checked all fuses, all that stuff. So if we've ruled out essentially everything on this piece of paper, the only other thing we can do is concentrate on the ABS module. And so that's what we did to solve this problem. We replaced the ABS module. And so taking the original module apart a little bit, you can see, I don't know, there's some discoloration. I don't know if that's a burn mark or what. I don't know. Maybe somehow this module went bad. Maybe there was water intrusion. Something happened. But that was a problem. We changed the module, and now we have our ABS working, and the car is driving like it should. Well, folks, I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something, or at least it was entertaining. I'm not pretending that I have any type of expertise in auto electrical diagnosis whatsoever. I'm just trying to pass along some basic information that will help another guy at my level. So by all means, if you have anything to add to what I'm saying, please leave it in the comments. If you think I'm a clown, leave that in the comments as well. Or if you found it helpful, leave it in the comments. And if you did find it helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because we have other videos like this. And we'll be happy to have you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.